Hi, hello, and welcome to my channel, where I talk about all things comedy. And today we'll be talking about the newest addition to the Netflix library, Space Force. Space Force is a highly anticipated comedy series on Netflix, created by Greg Daniels and Steve Carell. And the show centers around Mark Naird, an Air Force lieutenant who's been appointed as the first chief of operations of the newest United States military branch, Space Force. The show navigates the struggles he faces in his new job against the other foreign forces, and it shows the multiple relationships he develops with his scientific team, his enemies from the Air Force, and his family.
How much was that prototype?
4 million middle schools. Cost as much as 4 new middle schools.
When I first saw the trailer, I was amazed by the high production and the stacked cast of Carell himself, John Malkovich, Lisa Kudrow, and Ben Schwartz. But I wasn't very sold on the premise of the show, because I felt like it cornered itself to a timely subject that might not have the longevity to carry many storylines, and can look dated after a while. Also, I feel like it limited itself in terms of comedy, but at least it seems like the creators were aware of those limitations, as they tried to never refer to the president by name and vaguely talk about his politics. And after watching the show, it confirmed my assumptions about its comedy. The first episode did a decent job at introducing the characters. It was a bit chaotic, but it finished on a very promising note.
I only wish that my parents could have been here to see this. But they were unable to get flights from New Jersey in time.
The second episode was really good, and overall the best episode of the season, because it found the balance between the comedic moments and the underlying storyline. Unfortunately, the show lost the balance afterwards. It toned down the comedy in favor of more serious scenes, but it struggled to find the right moment to bring it back. The biggest take of the show is that it under-delivered in terms of comedy. This is because the show seems to be concerned of portraying a realistic military figure with real personality traits, who really struggles in his decision-making process and who for the most part is trying to make logical decisions in his personal and professional life. So the show dedicated a considerable amount of screen time to set the scenes with the serious tone, and the comedy suffered in return, because it was hard for the characters to make a quick shift to comedy without undermining the previous scenes. And when the series attempted to juggle comedy and drama, it led to a very lackluster cringe comedy and inconsistent characters. Surely the relationship between Naird and Dr. Mallory is beautifully depicted and reflected the high chemistry between Carell and Malkovich, to the point that it overshined the side characters, who seemed underdeveloped in comparison, and we didn't feel very invested in their stories. But my only problem with Space Force doesn't involve the show itself. It just highlights the current situation with the new streaming services, who tend to hire big writers and actors as an attempt to recreate the magic of another hit TV show or a movie, in efforts to bring eyeballs to the platform, as we saw with Apple TV and Quibi at their launch. But this ends up being a PR bubble and 100% recipe for failure, as the streaming service is betting on a nostalgic viewer who'd probably be unsatisfied by the new product, because he's comparing the biggest moments of his favorite show to the new show who might be struggling to find its footing, and who might not live up to the nostalgia of the other show. And this is exactly what happened with Space Force. I've seen many articles and comments comparing Space Force to The Office, and even trying to draw parallels between the two workplaces, and they went as far as trying to find the Dwight, the Jim, or the Pam of Space Force. And as I said before, it's totally unfair to put the weight of a 10-season show on 10-episode series, because The Office itself wasn't very well received in its first season. In addition, The Office was already a remake of a well-written TV show made by one of the biggest names in comedy, so it was tested and tweaked in its American version. As underwhelming as it might be, we shouldn't overlook the show completely and give the creators a fair chance to learn from the feedback in season 2. The show has a sentimentality that makes it really easy to watch, and an absurdity that can be cultivated in better ways. And I hope for season 2 that the writers would focus more on the staff and the workplace instead of borrowing from real life. This is because real stories are predictable and overused.